Good morning, hopeful people. It's Vadim. So, how to live in a simulation? How do we know if we're living in a simulation? Well, we don't. We don't know if we're living in a simulation, or maybe you do, and you can let me know how you know because I'd like to know. I have some hunch. I have some, I have some intuitions, some gut feelings, maybe little bits of evidence. I can tell you the best argument that I ever heard. I was listening to a podcast, and these two guys, one of them is, I forget his name, I think Roman. He's a Russian AI safety researcher, very interesting guy. And I was listening to the podcast, and he was saying that the the likelihood of us living in a simulation is very high if you think of it based off a thought experiment of we can create a billion or you can create unlimited simulations. Okay. So if you can create unlimited simulations, the chance that you're living in one is quite high, right? Because, you know, the thinking is that I'm going to lose it right now. Hold on. The thinking is that if you, um, if there's so many possibilities of simulation, the chances that you're in one of those possibilities is quite high versus the alternative would be that if you are not living in a simulation, then it would be one out of unlimited, right? If our world is the real world and every other thing is a simulation that we create on our computers or like in movies or whatever, and then our world is the one real world, it's less likely, right? It's if you just look at probability, I'm not, and you can break my argument, or if you can break this down, if I'm analyzing the argument incorrectly, this is why I'm putting this on YouTube. I wanted people to argue with me and give me feedback and criticism. But the way that I understand it is if there's unlimited simulations, right? There's unlimited simulations. There's no limit to how many simulations designers can create. Then the chance that you're not in one, that your world is the real world, is less likely than you are in a simulation. Does that make sense? I hope so. So let's go over this paper and what it's a short little paper. It's not a new paper. It's kind of a famous little work that this guy did after he was inspired by watching The Matrix. And I found out about this paper recently and I read it. And the main gist of it is we don't know if we are living in a simulation, but it can be beneficial to us to assume that we are and live our lives according to that assumption. And if we do assume that we're living in a simulation, how would you go about living your life? Would you like what choices would you make? How would you live? And the premise, I mean, the argument is that if we are living in a simulation, I'm going to read this from the paper. If you might be living in a simulation, then all else equal, you should care less about others, live more for today, make your world look more likely to become rich, expect to and try more to participate in pivotal events, be more entertaining and praiseworthy, and keep the famous people around you happier and more interested in you. Let's unpack this piece by piece. So we assume we're living in a simulation. Okay, fine. Now let's say, how should we live if we make that assumption? So it says you should care less about others. What does that mean? That means you should be focused on yourself more than other people or caring what they think because they're also living in a simulation, in their own simulation. So the point is not to be isolated from other people. It means more, I think, to focus on your own goals, ambitions, desires, what you want to get out of life. That's the idea for that. Live more for today. Again, same thing. Like if you're living, it's this, even if you're not living in a simulation, you'd want to live more for today because you don't know if you could be hit by a bus. You don't know if you could get a disease. Nobody wants to think about this. Humans have a unique ability to not think about the fact that we're dying at all times, right? We don't think about this. Even old people don't think about the fact that their life is ending soon because we have this amazing ability to just kind of put that away and just disconnect from that so that we can live our lives. So you'd want to do this even more so because you don't know when is the simulation going to end. Are we, so you're better off just living today to the fullest. Make your world look more likely to become rich. I think this means bring more of, whatever you do, create value. You don't want to create destruction. You would want to be, this is a very optimistic approach. You don't want to create negativity. Why would you do that when this, if you want to keep the simulation going, I guess you would want to keep the simulators happy by creating a happy world, right? So next, expect to and try more to participate in pivotal events. Keep your life interesting. This is, you could use this advice even if you don't believe in the simulation because it's a good framework for how to live. Be interesting. Focus on your goals. Don't focus on what other people think. Do your plan. Be positive. Influence others positively. Keep the simulation happy and going towards something good. Be more entertaining and praiseworthy. Do something interesting. Keep the simulation interesting. Keep the simulators happy. Keep the famous people around you happier and more interested in you. This is all kind of the same, going toward, it's the same thesis, right? If we're living in a simulation, you would want life to be interesting, optimistic, rich, living to the full capacity of your human capabilities within that simulation. The idea is if you are in prison, being the simulation, why not make the best of it, right? And if you don't know if the prison is a simulation or not, you would still be better off making the best of it. That's my general, very elementary understanding of this paper. I don't really like to get into the deep philosophical discussions because, and I went to school for philosophy and I read tons of papers like this, and you can get very, very into the twisted and into the arguments, like actually unpacking the arguments and trying to break them down. That's not really my purpose. My purpose is how to live better based off this theory that are we in a simulation or not? How can that question, just sitting there in the morning and waking up and asking, am I in a simulation or am I not in a simulation? Either way, let's say I don't know, okay? Well, we don't know. So either way, the outcome is the same. I would rather, number one, live for my goals, live optimistically, try to get wealthy, and try to create things in the world that benefit others, try to get attention from people who will provide positive feedback, and then I will provide positive feedback back to them. This is what you would do if you were, regardless of it was a simulation or not, you would benefit from this anyway. Again, the idea is if you live as if you are in a simulation, you get the positive results either way, even if it's not a simulation or not. So I hope I didn't confuse you with this video. The point is to say that we don't know if we live in a simulation. Some people are convinced we do. Some people are convinced we don't. But the outcome would be the same. You would still want to live like this. If you might be living in a simulation, then all else equal, you should care less about others, live more for today, make your world look more likely to become rich, expect to and try more to participate in pivotal, interesting events, be more entertaining and praiseworthy, and keep the famous people around you happier and more interested in you. Basically, live a good, interesting life either way, if we're in a simulation or not. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you've read this paper. Let me know if you think I'm crazy or you want to just argue with me. I welcome any and all feedback, criticism, comments. It's my first video for this channel, so let's go.